Counselors Beyond Knowledge, written by Oliver Matar and narrated by Whitney Edwards. Introduction. At our present time and going forward, the notion of uncertainty is becoming the core determinant of almost every aspect of our lives. To support this statement, it is enough to pay attention at the end of each year to the review of major events as accounted for by the media. Ask yourself this simple question: what is really under my control? Is it the job to which I was highly dedicated and abruptly lost due to external factors? Is it my retirement fund value, which significantly depreciated over a period of 1 week? Is it my money deposited in a bank that might go bankrupt overnight? Is it my health insurance policy that could be terminated due to a change in regulations? Within this kind of environment, offering reliable, sound, and valid advice is one of the greatest challenges even for the wisest humans. Therefore, it is not by any means my intention to prescribe a formula for success in this book or elsewhere. In fact, by the time this book is published and read, many events would have occurred, altered my perspective, and probably significantly transformed my world and yours. First and foremost, the purpose for venturing into the production of this book is to take a step back and summarize before moving on with my career and life. The learning that I have acquired from 17 years of experience, 9 years out of which being an independent expert, supporting 80 private and public sector organizations in 12 different countries. Another main reason behind writing this book is to share with you parts of my professional journey thus far. As it is the case for every single person, my experience, although it is very humble, is unique as our journey in life is not identical to any other. My experience is, therefore, in my view, worth the effort to be transformed from implicit knowledge residing in my head to explicit knowledge on the pages of this book. The other reason is to explain the conclusions that I have drawn based on my experience on how to steer my career going forward, knowing that my perspective is inherently dynamic and contingent to the different turns and twists the business environment might witness at any given moment. In the first chapter of this book, I will start by giving an account of my career path, detailing the milestones that shape my professional journey since the year 1995. In the second chapter, I will touch on the notion of anticipating the future of the business environment. The main questions that I will attempt to answer in this part are: why do we need to have some visibility into the future? Should we give up on trying to anticipate unforeseen events? In the third chapter, I will explore 4 major trends that are shaping our world today. I would like to caution you early at this time that these trends are by no means the only ones shaping our world. Furthermore, in this very complex and intertwined world, it is very simplistic to address a specific phenomenon in isolation. In fact, no matter how sophisticated they are, business models are like a static black and white 2-dimensional picture of a dynamic, colorful, and multidimensional world. In the 4th chapter, I will explain my perspective on how these trends are impacting on the individuals, organizations, and the expert's profession. By the word expert, I mean every person whose career mainly consists of extending any type of counseling to individuals, organizations, or governments. Under this broad definition, one can fit a wide array of professions such as physicians, therapists, trainers, life coaches, inspirational speakers, consultants, etc. I will also tackle the question of whether change affects everything, and if yes, to what extent. In the 5th chapter, I will detail one possible way on how the expert's profession might evolve. As I mentioned earlier, my intention here is not to prescribe any formula for success, as in my view, there are none. It's rather to share my current vision, and I stress on the word current, on how I intend to steer my career as an independent expert. Most importantly, my aim is that you enjoy the process of reading this book, regardless of the fact that you might find it remotely or closely relevant to your own career path. I hope I will be successful to a certain extent in attaining this target. Chapter 1. My Career Path. There is a popular saying, every man or woman is the product of his or her environment, and experiences. In this chapter, I will give an account of my career path with the aim of familiarizing my readers about my background so they can grasp the context that led to my conclusions about the expert's profession. At the time of writing this book, my career would have spread over a period of 17 years, 8 of which I was employed by 2 multinational organizations, approximately 4 years at each firm. For the balance 9 years, I was an independent expert, advising private and public sector organizations and individuals on various management matters such as strategic planning and business excellence. The aim of my work was to improve the experience and maximize the value for all stakeholders, employees, customers, society, and leaders. My journey started in the summer of the year 1995 after graduating from the St. Joseph University in Beirut, Lebanon, with a degree in economics. At this time, the commercialization of the Internet had just become widespread. There were many changes ahead for me, and I was going to learn quickly how to adapt and learn from those. I first worked as a customer service coordinator for Adidas Middle East. My job essentially consisted of coordinating orders and shipments of products from various countries in Asia, Europe, and the Gulf countries. In 1996, a war broke out between Lebanon and Israel. At the same time, Dubai was emerging as a magnet for multinationals in the region. Those 2 factors, among others, led Adidas to make the decision to move their regional offices to Dubai in the year 1997. So I had to relocate with the company. I became more involved in the logistics operations of Adidas Middle East. The key project that I worked on in this regard was conducting a feasibility study to determine whether Adidas Middle East should operate its own warehouse or outsource it. The project ended up being a success, as I recommended and implemented moving Adidas Logistics to a better logistics service provider at competitive costs. In the year 1999, I was delegated to represent Adidas Middle East in the annual IT Process Owners Meeting in Adidas headquarters in Germany. Representatives from all over the world participated in this meeting. Based on this meeting, a core team of less than 10 persons were selected to advise Adidas IT headquarters on the business process flow so they could develop the new generation of the Adidas Enterprise Resource Planning, ERP. During the year 1998, there was a steep depreciation of the Russian currency, the ruble. This impacted negatively on the Gulf and especially the Dubai market. Due to this and other reasons, Adidas Middle East decided to relocate its main office again to Lebanon to cut operating costs. The management offered me a promotion and asked me to relocate back to Lebanon. This time I refused and searched for a new job. At the start of the year 2000, I was hired by Showtime Pay TV as a logistics manager. From the year 2000 to 2002, I worked on my MBA at Strathclyde University in Glasgow, United Kingdom, Dubai Centre. I took on additional responsibilities in Showtime as a project manager. I was managing several cross-functional projects, such as launching new channels, technology update, and most importantly, business process re-engineering. This particular project was very successful and was appreciated by my peers and superiors. One day, my direct manager told me that I was doing a good job to manage the project of improving internal efficiency, but normally such kind of work should be done by an external independent expert. I had always dreamt of becoming independent. What my manager said inspired me to pursue a career as an independent external expert advising organizations on how to improve their performance through streamlining their processes. The vast majority of my entourage discouraged me from taking this step, as I did not possess the knowledge, the credentials, and the brand to make me credible enough to acquire clients. After considerable hesitations, mostly being scared of what might go wrong, I decided to resign and start a career as an independent expert in the year 2003. During early days after becoming independent, I was working more by trial and error. 5 months elapsed during which I tried to knock on the doors of hundreds of potential clients to acquire assignments. After hundreds of rejections, the first couple of projects I acquired were in factories. The first assignment consisted of analyzing and improving the internal processes for a manufacturer of heavy-duty steel material. The second assignment consisted of improving the supply chain process for a food processing manufacturer. At the beginning, I was focused on analyzing the client's business to try to improve efficiency and effectiveness. Very quickly, I started to realize that it was not enough for me to dispense technical advice to clients, as the internal staff possessed all the technical knowledge and knew exactly what they needed to do to improve. The challenge was the lack of willingness to act rationally from the organization as a whole. I discovered that everyone, including the owners and CEOs, had hidden agendas. I found out that for one of my early projects, the CEO hired me to sell and push his own plan through the consultancy projects. I found myself compelled to invest more time in managing expectations of the different stakeholders as opposed to giving technical advice based on rational analysis. As part of my assignments, I had to interview a large number of employees from different sectors to collect data about the current way the business was being handled. Those interviews would often drift into a discussion about organizational politics. The staff often took the opportunity of the interview to speak about their grievances and to blame others for the problems. I was lucky to meet someone who was willing to give me an opportunity to work in the banking sector. Although I had absolutely no knowledge about this sector, I managed to be successful. My first assignment consisted of developing policies and procedures for a bank located in Dubai, with its headquarters in Paris. The procedures that I developed were shown to the Central Bank of France officers who were auditing the bank headquarters in Paris. They were impressed by my work, so the general manager of the bank headquarters in Paris asked me to do the same job that I did in Dubai, in Paris. Meanwhile, the auditor of the first bank in Dubai recommended my work to another bank, and within a span of less than 1 year, I went from knowing absolutely nothing about banks to being an international banking expert. I acquired projects in several countries such as Romania, France, UAE, and Lebanon. What I learned from the banking sector was that the business is moving so quickly, even in such a traditional industry, that it was so difficult to dispense any advice that had not become quickly obsolete. Any technical advice that seemed to make total sense today quickly became irrational due to changes in the work environment. In a typical project, I would collect data about the current situation, analyze it, and then design recommendations for improvement. By the time I approached the staff again for implementation of the recommendations, I found out that those were not applicable anymore due to the advent of a change from the external business environment. I managed to acquire consulting assignments in 12 different countries spread over 3 continents. My other big breakthrough in my career came when I started acquiring assignments with the Dubai public sector. Like the banking and manufacturing sectors, the public sector was a black box for me. I virtually knew nothing about it. As it is known, the city of Dubai witnessed tremendous growth during the last decade of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st. I was lucky to have been at the right time and the right place when all this has occurred. Over the span of 9 years, I managed to acquire consulting assignments from around 20% of the Dubai, Abu Dhabi local governments and the UAE federal government. In the year 1998, the ruler of Dubai launched the Dubai Government Excellence Program, DGEP, an initiative aiming to develop the public sector. All Dubai government authorities and departments were compelled by law to adopt DGEP as a vehicle to improve their internal practices. Each year, the central government conducts an assessment to evaluate all government departments and ranks them based on the extent of their compliance to DGEP. Many of those organizations sought assistance from external consultants to help them in complying with DGEP requirements. My first public sector assignment was to benchmark the key performance indicators, KPIs, of one of Dubai's biggest government departments against international best practices and recommend new KPIs and/or new ways to calculate the KPIs. It was an interesting project in the sense that I learned how the most advanced governments in the world measured, improved, and monitored their performance. The second public sector project consisted of investigating how 50 government staff members spend a typical day, measuring their productivity, and recommending ways to improve staff efficiency and effectiveness. My first big achievement in the public sector was when I supported a world-renowned Dubai government organization to advance significantly their compliance with DGEP criteria and improve substantially their ranking among other Dubai government organizations. After that, the projects started coming in. At the time of writing this book, my key achievements are founding and managing for 9 years an international management consulting firm that successfully executed in excess of 80 large consulting projects in the public and private sectors, in the police, judicial, tourism, municipal, roads and transport, civil aviation, culture, humanitarian, media-free zones, foreign trade, rehabilitation, banking, insurance, manufacturing, services, retail, and trading sectors in 12 different countries from North America, Europe, and the Middle East. Based on my career journey, I have constituted a vision about one, among many, plausible way, and I stress here on the word one, the expert's profession might evolve in the future. The aim of this book is to share my thoughts and hopefully stir discussions around it. Chapter 2. Predicting the Future of Business, Myth versus Reality. This chapter is dedicated to shed some light on the notion of uncertainty and how it disrupts our need for having a visibility into the future. Drawing on my experience as an expert and a trusted counselor for a multitude of organizations from different sectors spread all over the globe, I wish to share my thoughts about the concept of predicting the future. Who among us does not project herself or himself into the future? Family planning, career path, corporate strategies, and government budgets are all vehicles to predict, plan, and try to control the future. One of the main reasons why humans need the function of leadership is actually for predicting the future. The main concern of almost all the leaders that I have advised is to know what's coming next. As a matter of fact, those leaders understand that their subordinates' degree of respect is directly correlated with their ability to tell them stories about the future that turn out to be a reality more often than not. Depending on the reliability of their visions, their status as leaders is consolidated or compromised. The concept of vision is almost equivalent for predicting the future. While interviewing staff for data gathering for my consulting projects, I have experienced firsthand their need to be working in organizations whose leaders are aware of how the environment is evolving. They know that their future is more secure if the leader is a true visionary. Why was Steve Jobs a great leader? Wasn't it mainly because of his ability to foresee the consumer's needs in the digital age? Politicians who are running for re-election compete to highlight in their record what they were able to foresee in the future. Back in the year 2007, one of my clients, a leader in a government agency, told me that his main expectation for me as an advisor was to support him in constructing and communicating a picture of the direction his country might be heading into over the coming years. The scenarios I had constructed for him did not take into consideration the 2008 financial crisis, so they turned out to be inaccurate. However, the activity that consists of trying to anticipate what's coming next did energize and motivate the government agency staff at that time to launch initiatives that bore some fruit regardless of the accuracy of the prediction of the future. As a matter of fact, those initiatives were put on hold for 2 years post the financial crisis, but then they were picked up again when the economic storm was weathered down. What I got from this experience is that sometimes trying to have a visibility into the future is a worthwhile endeavor, regardless of its accuracy. Having said that, there are some exceptions. In the year 2004, I was hired as an advisor by a leader who owns and runs a commodity trading business. He had never believed in business plans and budgets, yet his business was extremely successful. Once I asked him why he didn't have a budget, he said the sharp and abrupt variation of the commodities prices undermined the value of any planning activity, as the most important element for planning is the commodities prices, which cannot be predicted with a good degree of reliability. On the personal level, I have also tried to predict the future. Throughout my active life, I have always envisioned what I would like to see happening next. At each milestone, I was under the impression that I had figured out my upcoming move. The reality is that the picture keeps on changing as I advance, and found myself compelled to adjust to new political, technological, economical, and social parameters. While undertaking the necessary adjustments, I built a vision of the subsequent move based on the newly developed circumstances. Time and time again, I was stunned that I had to cope with an ever-evolving environment. I needed to avoid being a prisoner of my current vision of the future, or the plans that I had made based on the previous situation, as this would delay my response time to the new situation. It consumed my energy each time I tried to free myself from my previous plans and accept new ones. Therefore, the challenge was not only the change that was imposed on me, it was also the plans for the different future that I made previously and were not viable based on the new environment. I developed the skill of reducing my attachment to the vision of the future so I could be ready emotionally to adapt when changes occur. In this context, to anticipate is of little relevance. At the beginning of the year 2008, we were extending strategic advice to the owner of a real estate company based in Dubai. Back then, the real estate sector in Dubai was booming. The prices were increasing by 10% or more month after month. People used to queue up for days prior to the launch of a project to buy apartments and resell them at a hefty profit a few days later. As a result, our client's business was booming. Despite the fact that we did not anticipate the looming financial crisis, it was obvious for us that the real estate sector accelerated growth was unsustainable. During one of our planning sessions with the client, we raised the issue of sustainability of growth. Our client shared with us alarming market information that contained many indicators that the upward trend was about to be reversed. Yet our client was locked up financially in commitments that were based on the assumption that the market would continue to grow. Also, his mindset was already accustomed to the positive business trend that he experienced over the last few years. So emotionally, he was not ready to accept the negative market signals. Unfortunately, this led to his organization's bankruptcy a few months after the breakout of the 2008 financial crisis. Predicting the future is a topic that is somewhat controversial among those in the business world. After all, one of the most ancient wishes of humans has been the ability to predict the future. Why is that? Some of the underlying factors behind this desire are: 1. People instinctively do not like uncertainty as it is linked to risk, peril, and fear of losing current privileges. Generally, people like to be prepared. They like to know what's coming so they can prepare for it and be ready when it arrives. In the year 2008, I was developing policies and procedures for a bank located in Bucharest, Romania. While interviewing the staff to gather data about the current practices, they often drifted to share their horrible experience prior to the collapse of the communist regime back in the year 1989. One of the bank employees depicted their life during Ceausescu's Iron Fist rule. Ceausescu was an extreme example of people who were advocates and practiced total center planning. As part of an austerity program to erase the Romanian foreign debt, he used to compel his people to eat few types of food, as he wanted to export all other types to achieve a trade surplus. In a way, he was trying to control and shape the future. The question that presents itself here is, why did his people tolerate his policies and atrocities for almost 2 decades before they revolted against him? Wasn't it partly because he satisfied one of their most basic needs, which was providing an illusion of certainty and predictability of the future? Possibly the answer is yes. 2. An accurate prediction of the future could help to build wealth and power. All businesses, no matter their product or service, are in business for the same objective: to earn money. Money is seen as a tool for power and vice versa. If one could see into the future, she or he could build her or his wealth, or at least protect it. Back in the year 2008, I was engaged by a multinational infrastructure construction organization to facilitate the process of crafting a strategic plan. One of the main inputs to produce the plan was to identify future trends based on which strategic objectives and initiatives were defined. While facilitating a strategic alignment workshop for the said organization leaders, I could not help but notice that the leaders' main focus was on answering one question: how can we practically convert the knowledge acquired through the strategy crafting process into a detailed monthly cash flow forecast? This has revealed to me the great emphasis that managers are placing on converting futuristic insight into hardcore cash. When it comes to the usefulness of planning, there are different schools of thought. On one end of the spectrum, there are the complete and total skeptics. It's impossible to predict the future. Just do what you've been doing and adjust to the emergent circumstances. These are the same people who wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, whatever happens, I'll wait for it to happen," and then act. Why worry? This is an extreme approach, as individuals, firms, and governments cannot function without some kind of visibility into the future. However, proponents of this school of thought might argue that some of the biggest multinationals were not the product of planning. Few examples come to mind here, namely General Electric, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. In the year 2005, I was conducting a training for the staff of a very successful manufacturer in Dubai. While I was mentioning the great achievements of the firm since its inception 10 years earlier, one senior manager stepped up to say that he thinks they were successful because they were lucky to have established the company at the right place and time. In other words, their achievements were not the result of planning. His statement bears some truth, yet it lacks the appreciation of the power of their short and long-term goals that underlines their motivation to continue moving forward. On the other end of the spectrum, there are the people creating the budgets, the strategic plans, and the forecasters shouting, "We need a plan," and then act. They are the people who plan for only certain things and stick to budgets, no matter the economic or social changes. This is also an extreme approach due to the difficulty to cater for the abrupt, unforeseen events. For instance, did the strategic plans developed back in the years 2000 to 2003 cater for the 2008 financial crisis? For the vast majority of the cases, the answer is probably not. The proponents of this school of thought might argue that all the companies, including the ones that were not the product of planning, such as General Electric, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, do practice planning and budgeting. I have had the opportunity to be hired as an expert for several government authorities in Dubai. All my Dubai government clients were adept of the planning approach. As a matter of fact, Dubai's central government crafted a long-term strategy and distributed the responsibility for attaining the various strategic objectives to all its authorities: municipality, roads and transport, health authority, police, customs, etc. Each one of the authorities crafted its own strategic plan in alignment with the Dubai central government plan. These planning activities were partially behind the rise of Dubai as a global city. Yet they did not, as it was the case for almost all governments in the world, foresee the 2008 financial crisis. Therefore, after absorbing the global seism, Dubai government had to revise its strategic plan, and it has done it successfully. The important point to highlight here is that Dubai government did not stop planning, despite the huge global disruption. Conceivably, one of the key learning is to continue to plan while knowing in advance that the plans might be swiftly rendered obsolete by a single major external event. It can be concluded from the above that both schools of thought offer great value for sound management, but they fail to explain the entire picture. This is hardly surprising. As a matter of fact, no human science theory can capture the complex, multidimensional reality. As I mentioned in the introduction, business models are like a static, black and white, two-dimensional, poor quality picture of a dynamic, colorful, and multidimensional world. It is worth it at this stage to shed some light on the concept of disruption. A typical forecasting methodology looks at numbers, historical facts, and current trends to open a window into the future to increase chances for sustainable long-term success. These forecasts are often disrupted by unforeseen events. What is a disruption? The future is often shaped by disruptive occurrences that, on the surface, do not relate to what we currently know. I say on the surface because the future is actually an extension of the past and present. However, our minds cannot analyze the complexity and number of incidents or factors that converge to lead to other events. That's why, for us, they seem unpredictable. Reflecting back on the first unforeseen event that has significantly impacted on my career early on, I can safely say that I was working extremely hard. My superiors appreciated my work, and my employer was posting profits and growth. Based on these facts, I felt that I was in control of my own career. Suddenly, due to an unforeseen geopolitical event, I found myself compelled to either leave my job or relocate to another country. Looking back now, could I have predicted the occurrence of the geopolitical events? Probably yes, if I was not so much focused on my work. Could I have guessed that this event would lead my employer to relocate? This is even less evident. So what took me off guard could have been predicted if I had more than 24 hours a day and the energy of 5 people. The same is applicable to governments. Could the U.S. government have anticipated the 2008 financial crisis? After the fact, the answer is yes, if it had more time and resources. Unpredictable events are often related to the black swan analogy. Prior to the year 1697, it was believed that the only color swans came in was white. Then the Dutch explorer Willem de Vlamingh discovered black swans on the west coast of Australia. This was a huge surprise to Europeans. It was completely unforeseen. After this, the terminology black swan became a synonym for unforeseen events. Could the Europeans have predicted this unforeseen event? The answer is yes, if they had the means to reach remote places in the southern part of the globe. Take the stock market crash of the year 1929, which helped to bring in the Great Depression. During the Roaring Twenties, America saw wealth and excess. Regardless of the risk of speculation, many thought the stock market would keep going up and never stop. Up until that point, the market saw the Dow Jones increase 5-fold for 6 years. Not long before the crash, economist Irving Fisher said, stock prices have reached what looks like a permanently high plateau. That theory went out the window when on October 24th, 1929, share prices of the New York Stock Exchange fell dramatically. The market lost 11% of its value just at the opening bell. Americans flew into a panic. People were terrified. There were runs on banks, families fled, and some chose to end their lives. The terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001 are another example of a black swan event. On what seemed like a normal Tuesday, 19 hijackers took control of 4 commercial airliners headed towards San Francisco, Boston, Newark, and Washington, D.C. The hijackers carried out their plans of crashing into the World Trade Center Twin Towers in New York City, the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and another into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, presumably headed for the White House. Across the nation's airports were closed, gas stations removed prices, and people hid in safe rooms. It took a while for the United States to get its footing, but it did. Could the U.S. government have predicted those events? Possibly after the fact. We were tempted to say, yes, if it had unlimited time and resources, it should have seen both of these historical events coming. It's not easy, although not impossible, to foresee these events. Mortimer Zuckerman, head of Boston Properties, appears to have predicted the 2008 financial crisis. In the year 2007, he began to realize that the housing market growth wasn't sustainable. His research and expertise all pointed him in the same direction: sell. In response, he sold around U.S. dollars $4.25 billion worth of property. Was it inspiration, foresight, or pure luck? Difficult to say. Zuckerman is quoted as saying, "I have been an optimist all my life, and I hate to be a bear, but this is going to be a very serious recession." Can we do away with planning? The answer is possibly no, as in order for the business world to function properly, all stakeholders, this includes shareholders, management, banks, even the government, expect some kind of visibility into the future. This is the purpose behind business plans and budgets. Having a written plan is useful for unforeseen events. It assists in knowing what to do, protocols to follow, and decisions that will need to be made when abrupt changes happen. From planning comes the need to set more reliable methodologies for forecasting and envisioning the future, while also catering for uncertainty. Uncertainty and abrupt change are the two driving forces that could be predicted with an acceptable degree of certainty. Coming back to the two schools of thought of non-planning and planning, probably a more sensible approach, but by no means comprehensive, as it also fails to grasp the complex multidimensional reality, is to bring these two schools of thoughts together to a different school of thought. Use uncertainty as a main pillar for planning. What if we incorporate change into our forecasting methodology? What would happen then? One such methodology is scenario planning. This was pioneered by Shell, the Dutch oil giant. Such kinds of approach to predict the future have become more relevant at the current time due to the abrupt and deep impact changes that are occurring. I will use those approaches to open a window into the future of the expert's profession. The underlying factors causing big events that impact a sizable number of people or nations are often intertwined with the driving forces shaping the life of each one of us. In many ways, we can feel those forces in our lives. My life is no exception. Here are few unforeseen events that have steered my career into undesired directions. In the year 1996, an abrupt regional war compelled me to move to another country because the company that I was working for had to relocate. I was faced with the difficult choice of becoming unemployed with little hope to find another job, or to part with my current life and keep my job. I chose the latter. The sharp devaluation of the Russian currency in the year 1998 was one of the main reasons behind the downsizing of the company I was working for, which led me to change jobs. The 2008 financial crisis led me to lose my most important clients in the Dubai government and almost drove me into bankruptcy. The 2011 Middle East uprisings brought to a halt my work with many of my government agency clients. Could I have foreseen those events and how they might impact on my life? The answer is probably positive. If I had the time, energy, and ability to constantly scan my environment and try to foresee how it might evolve. But in practice, this is almost impossible. After all, as it is the case for the vast majority of people and, for that matter, governments, I did not have enough access to information to predict. For example, the Middle East uprisings, which broke out following one single event occurring on December 18, 2010, in Tunisia when Mohamed Bouazizi self-immolated in protest of police corruption and ill treatment. Yet this event was only the needle that burst the balloon, with the balloon being more than 4 decades of oppression in the Middle East. Could I do without planning? The answer is no. After all, planning is like the fuel that provides energy for the car to keep it moving. On the one hand, without some kind of visibility into the future, my life would have come to a standstill. On the other hand, rigid planning would have held me prisoner when it was time to adapt to abrupt change. What is the solution then? I would continue to plan while knowing in advance that my projects might drastically be diverted due to abrupt events. I would therefore use the change as a key determinant of my plans. Besides survival, my other constant endeavor is to maximize my level of satisfaction and happiness as much as possible for as long as possible.